Thank you. Hi guys, how are you? Okay, so we are in the new book. This is all about quilting, the next Gather magazine. So we're on page 22. Across the Generations is our Bible study for May. And then you'll want to keep this because it also has June in it. Don't forget to keep yours now. Because it has June in it too. So. And the June one is really, really good because I've already read it. So should we do the prayer? Okay.
Loving God, you've invited us into this journey alongside strangers of all different ages, backgrounds, nationalities, religions, races, cultures, and beliefs. Despite these differences, you call us to engage one another with care and love. May we consider this calling as we hear the stories in this devotional. Help us to look for places in our own lives where we can be your hands and feet with our neighbors, even the neighbors who seem so different from us. Amen.
She forgot and got invited out for supper. She forgot.
Oh, Marlene did,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
She told me that she was, she told me yesterday. Okay, so it's become a tradition at Gather to take a break from our regular multi-session Bible studies to spend the month of May considering intergenerational relationships and what Scripture says about their importance. Sharing such stories is powerful. Neuroscientists who study storytelling have found that the brain waves of storytellers sync up with those of engaged listeners. Stories reach inside us. They make us remember. They change the way we think about things. Stories are also something we all have, regardless of who we are or where we come from. So this month, we've invited several of Gather's authors to share their stories, stories of those who reached out across barriers of age, race, and ability to bring people together and share hospitality. You'll be asked to consider your own story and the places God has led you. In doing so, you might also be surprised by the power of relationship and hospitality to inspire change. So should we go to everybody this time?
Okay.
Go next? Okay.
Okay.
So Hebrews 13, right?
2.
Verse 2. Just go ahead whenever you're ready. Catch up.
It's not real long.
No, it's not super long. What is it, like 3 words or something?
Yeah.
Maybe a little more.
My lines they're about 2 lines.
No, okay, well, go ahead.
Okay. Remember to welcome strangers, because some who have done this have welcomed angels without knowing it.
We read that one when we did the angel one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh, great. Okay.
Okay, this is Ketchup's Find by Sarah Carson. In preparation for this issue, I began thinking back to some of the most important intergenerational relationships in my life. I was a bit surprised to realize that one of the most significant relationships was formed a bit against my will. When my friend Nancy Tancredi and I first met, I didn't picture us becoming friends. We were both at a writing conference in eastern Maine. I was 26 years old and on my very first ever solo vacation. Nancy was in her 60s and retired. She was loud and I was quiet. She was confident and open where I was insecure and guarded. She shared her ideas and opinions freely while I scribbled notes by myself. But when our poetry teacher sent us off to find a quiet place to write, Nancy and I ended up together on a hill overlooking the Bay of Fundy. Nancy saw the ring on my finger and began asking me questions. We started to swap stories about our lives. The conversation and the friendship that followed changed the trajectory of my life. One of the stories my friend Nancy often told seemed almost too good to be true. As the story went, every year Nancy took her children and pets on a family vacation from their home in Boston to Acadia National Park on the east coast of Maine. A scenic respite from city life, the park's lush pine forests and rocky cliffsides spread out along the ocean shore. One afternoon after returning home, the family received a fateful call from the owner of the cabin where they'd been staying. The family had left something very important behind. Their cat, Ketchup, was still in Maine. After the family retrieved ketchup, Nancy's daughter-in-law Eleanor suggested a detour on their way home. There was a place Eleanor remembered on Beals Island, a tiny fishing community accessible only by a short bridge across an ocean inlet. With ketchup in tow, the family headed off to the island. Following weaving roads along the water, they came to a small house set among acres of leafy forest along the bay, and the house was for sale. To Nancy, finding the place was no accident. She felt the whole experience with ketchup had led her to the house. She would buy the place and call it Ketchup's Find. Nancy saw the place as a gift meant for sharing. Her house, her garden, and her acres of wooded coastline became a place for artists, writers, and visitors to gather and breathe deeply. She opened her doors to people from all walks of life. I sat on her porch myself with yoga teachers, pianists, poets, young people, and retirees. Today, when I think of hospitality, I think of Nancy sitting in her chair on the back porch, a full pot of coffee ready on the kitchen counter, empty cups waiting for her guests.
So the question is, have you had an experience in your own life like Nancy's story about ketchup?
Yep.
Yep. Want to share?
We had a dog named Smokey.
Okay.
And when you were growing up.
Yes.
Okay.
Smokey didn't like smoked noses.
Oh dear.
He didn't like smoke. That's why he
Okay.
But
That's a
anyway.
little paradoxical, but okay.
Anywho, cousins came and they had firecrackers.
Oh no.
And when they left, we couldn't find Smokey.
Oh dear.
And we looked and, couldn't figure out where he was. Well, they called when they got home. He had crawled under the seat in their car.
Oh really? Oh
And
my gosh.
so, and that was Spencer. They went home to Spencer.
Oh my goodness.
So
That's a little ways.
yeah, so we couldn't go and just go and get him, and we were waited till the next weekend, and he wouldn't eat or anything. And
Oh dear.
my sister and I, we cried because Smokey. My great aunt brought him to us in her purse. He was just a little dog,
Oh, he was just a little kid.
Yeah, but he.
Well, I mean, like a
but-
terrier.
Yeah,
Small.
I don't know. He was a mutt, but he would run behind the tractor out in the field with my dad, and then when he get tired, Dad would stop and he'd jump up on his lap, and then away they go. And I mean, he chased cows like he was a big dog, But, and we could dress him up in doll clothes and kinds of stuff. But so Smokey, no, that was terrible. We did that.
Oh, poor baby. Poor baby. I bet he was glad to see you.
Yes.
I bet he was happy to see you. So it says, a person, place, or opportunity that you felt God led you to encounter. Or perhaps a skill you learned or a lesson you were taught. I have one. In all of my husband's wanderings with his many jobs, one of them took us to St. Louis. We were supposed to go to Des Moines. That's what we were promised. We were sent to St. Louis. That was when he was working for Walmart, and he took a job with this new division called Hot Drug, and it was supposed to be a deep discount drugstore, and it was like Sam's baby, and he thought it up right before he was diagnosed with cancer. And so Kim jumped on the opportunity. He thought this was just great. It was right up his alley and something he knew a lot about. So fine. They were supposed to send us to Des Moines so we could be closer to family. Should have known better. They sent us to St. Louis. And I got there and we knew nobody. We didn't know a soul. No one. And we had two little kids in tow. Mandy was, I don't know, she was just little. She was just tiny, maybe 7 months old. I bet she was 7 months old. Yeah, because that was in May. And Christopher wasn't. He just turned 2. So it's like, and I got a dog. I got a yippy dog, and I got 2 little kids, and a car full of crap. And he's supposed to be going with the dog and the truck down to St. Louis so we could get moved, and I've got the 2 kids. It was at that point we discovered that Mandy was, well, I discovered later, she was car sick. She got car sick. Car sick. I had her in the front seat in her little car seat. You know, I had her in the back seat in her car seat, and of course, she was little enough. I had to have her flipped around the other way. She screamed the whole time. So we stopped. We hadn't even been an hour on the road. We stopped, and I fed her, and she wouldn't take a bottle. Fed her, got her settled, and let Christopher run around a little bit. We got her back in the car. I thought, okay, she'll be fine now. She started screaming. We weren't 20 minutes on her. She's screaming again. Just like. Stopped again. Okay, I thought, okay, maybe the diaper isn't on right, or maybe she's got missing bits. So I changed her diaper. Nope, she got her changed again. Got her. Wait, down there another 20 minutes. She's screaming again. It's like, okay, I hadn't even made it to Hannibal. We were living in Muscatine at the time. I hadn't even made it to Hannibal yet. Highway 61 is 2-lane roads, and it's hilly and curvy and all over the place. And it's just like, okay. So then I thought, maybe if I turn her around. So I just turned her around in the seat next to her. That didn't work. So I put her in the front seat. That didn't work. It's like, by the time I got to St. Louis, I was frazzled. And it's hot out. I finally got to the point, she's screaming at the top of her lungs. Christopher is sound asleep in the back. God bless him. And I rolled down all the windows in the car. And I turned up the radio as loud as I could. And of course, all the stops had delayed us, and we're getting into St. Louis at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh.
And the traffic is just horrid. And these people, this kid is just screaming at the top of her lungs. People are staring at your windows. Well, I did. I had the windows wide open and the radio was loud. I finally got to the house where we were supposed to be. We had found a rental place where we were supposed to be living. And pulled in, and the truck was already there. They were waiting for us. I'm like, oh my God. And these guys from Walmart, they were supposed to unload the truck for us. They literally unloaded it into the front yard of Walmart.
Oh.
And I just looked at my husband and said, why did you let them do it? Well, I didn't know where you wanted to. So you let them just dump it out of the front yard? It's like, I was just, I was just so frazzled. I couldn't even think straight. And in walks his boss's wife. She's got 5 kids in tow. They were Catholic, I'll just mention that. She has 5 kids in tow, and she had made a supper.
Oh.
This huge spread of supper. She said, let's just go in. She brought plates and everything. Everything you can think of. She said, yeah, I know what it's like to move so many times. So here you go. We just pulled out a blanket and just sat down on the floor, and we started, and we ate. And she's just so relaxed. We got kids screaming everything. She's just like Miss Relaxed. And I'm like, okay. This is a paradox in my life right now. And she turned out to be one of like a godsend, because, where the kids would be just, we didn't know anybody. So it was, and they probably lived a good 40 minutes from where we did. And, I call her up. I probably called her up every day, or she called me. We just talk on the phone, just like, oh, this kid did this, and this kid did this, and how that goes. It's like, and we would go out to their house, and the kids would just run, and they had bought a house, and they would run and play, and they just had that, and their younger kids are about the same age as her too, and so, and she was just like, she taught me so much about not sweating the small stuff. I guess that's the way, that she did. She taught me so much about just, sometimes you just gotta laugh at the craziness of your life. Kind of like Irma Bombeck. So she always reminded me of Irma Bombeck, because I always thought, okay, that must have been what she was like, because it always seemed like the advice that she'd give, It's just like, I always was just amazed at how she could just handle life the way she did with all the kids. And she used to make homemade bread every day for her family. And
Oh.
I mean, and she made homemade noodles. And she just was like, I was just like, I could never do that.
Well, you can't really think about the Amish people too.
Yeah, I know, but you know, they just seem so.
Yeah.
She always
Yeah,
just
they
seemed
make-
so in control and just so calm and just. And when she wasn't, you know, it was just like, oh well. It was just like,
So if they come in, I mean, nowadays kids wear two different socks and I can never figure out what Tanya's girls, you know.
oh yeah, that's the end thing now.
It's the end thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, if you ever sorted your socks, you must have at least 20 pairs that don't have a mate.
Well, and then I think that's where it started.
I
you
think
know,
that's
it's like, I'm not gonna
I
spend more
said
money on
something to somebody
socks.
once and they said, oh, I bought them this way. I'm like,
Oh, really? Yeah, I guess I didn't know that.
Because I was gonna give her a bad time, she had two different socks on. She said, oh, I bought them this way. Oh,
Okay, so
sorry.
It is
so I
amazing.
so I didn't really briefly describe, but that's kind of
Oh.
what the next one is. So anyway. Anybody else? Did you?
The one that came to mind when I was reading this was when I was in college. The gal, I worked in the library in the maps and documents section,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was my job, and dry as dirt. But Becky was really a nice person, and took me under her wing, and she had a garden plot outside Waterloo, and so we would go out there and weed the garden and water the garden and that, and then we would pick the vegetables and that, and she and I would can the vegetables.
Oh,
I'd
wow.
go over to her apartment and can
So did
vegetables,
you
so
learn
that's,
how to do that then? Or
Well,
did you
yeah.
already kind of know how?
my grandma had always done it at
Okay.
our house,
Okay.
but I didn't help her because,
Yeah, okay.
no, you don't.
You don't
You
interfere.
you help weed, you help plant, you help pick, or you plant, weed.
Well, whatever.
But the canning, nope, go on out.
Get out of my kitchen. Right? Get out of my kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Becky was the one that let me do it.
Oh, wow.
And it was fun, you know, going to her house and that. So for two summers, and we worked in her garden, and I learned a lot about canning and
Cool. So I guess the next question, you know, kind of, have you ever then in turn shared your gifts with someone else? Like a reciprocal thing, right? Have you ever thought about that?
as far as canning goes, there are a couple of friends of mine that we talk canning stories, and then how you put stuff together and
Mm-hmm.
how long you do water bath or
Mm-hmm.
the pressure cooking and stuff like that.
I think about you guys sharing the pond with the kids and,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
It's,
taking
we have
out.
we have a four-wheeler up there, but, you know,
I think sometimes just teaching your grandkids to
Yeah.
just
you
do
know,
things.
like some traditions
It's like
that they
Tanya
like to,
learning,
you know, like to do.
Tanya learning how to can meat. She's, Mom, you gotta do that. And I says, yes. And I think she's done one batch. Because the girls love it, so I'm thinking, girls, then I'll
Yeah.
get the
And you
canner.
need to
Actually, I
You
liked
need
it.
to-
I liked it too. I used it for my beef stew and stuff. It's really good.
You know, and I have 2 jars left. Now I'm going like, oh,
To get some made.
well, yeah, meat's not so.
Meat's not so expensive. It's not so cheap
25
anymore.
pounds
you
will
know.
give me 22 jars.
Well, there you go.
But at $3, $4, $5 a pound.
Yeah, that gets expensive. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so you ready? First Peter is our next
Okay,
reading.
First Peter, is that?
It's right after Hebrews.
Okay,
Yeah, it's right after actually. It's pretty
Actually, I
easy to
thought it
find.
was.
She did that really well, I thought.
So I gotta go back here, cause I
Picture 8 and 9. It says chapter
15,
4,
okay.
verses 8 and 9. Yeah, it is.
They're all
I think they all know how busy we are. Right?
Okay, First Peter, and it said 4, 8 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's just all over the place. Okay, so most importantly, love each other deeply because love will cause many sins to be forgiven. Open your homes to each other without complaining. Each of you has received a gift to use to serve others.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay, so you get to read the next one, Lorna. Go for it.
Okay, I recently packed my entire life into boxes to move near my first call, a congregation in Kansas. Once I arrived, I found myself more than 1,300 miles away from my friends and family on the East Coast. I was by myself in an unfamiliar area where I knew no one. The fact that the congregation was worshiping remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic only added to my sense of isolation and loneliness. If you're like me, the realities of the past 2 years might have made hospitality a little harder than usual. As we socially distanced, worshiped while physically apart from each other, and worried about our own and others' safety, it has become easy to stick to ourselves. And at times, welcoming others into our homes and our congregations has seemed not just difficult, but dangerous. But the congregation made a point to be friendly when I arrived. Despite the church being physically closed, I felt warmth. Members dropped meals off for me, met me for socially distanced visits, sent notes of thanks and salutations, and opened their homes to me. Church hospitality arrived via car rides, invitations, smiles, friendly greetings of "How are you?" and laughter. I know we're living in a touchless society, but we still can embrace our neighbors, can't we? In just showing up by being present, by asking if someone is in need, by noticing someone with a warm wave, there is power, amazing power in presence and in small gestures.
Well, any examples of hospitality during the pandemic? Friends, family members. You guys had didn't you do I don't remember you guys did the signs for, was it your son who had the birthday, or you guys did that? I can't remember.
Oh, my kids.
Your
My
kids did
brought-
it.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Was that your
It's-
birthday? I can't
It was
remember.
my birthday.
It was your birthday.
Yeah.
See, I knew somebody did something for a
Yeah.
birthday. I couldn't remember what
Yeah.
it was.
They stood out in the front yard and had the sign, and we stood out in the garage.
Oh, there you go.
With our masks on and celebrating birthday. And my son, youngest son, he works for gal in Gilbert that puts signs in people's yards. Have you
Oh,
seen
okay.
those signs that they spell out the name and happy birthday or
Oh,
you know?
okay.
And he said he was really busy. you
Oh,
know,
I suppose.
during the
Oh,
pandemic.
Oh, I suppose.
People were really putting a lot
Because
of.
of the drive-by things that
Yeah,
were
you know, they
happening.
couldn't have birthday parties, so they would
Oh,
pay
I
to put
suppose.
signs in their
Sure.
yard. He was putting 2 or 3 signs sometimes a day in people's yards, you know. And it
Wow.
was, you know, that was something he could do after when he wasn't dead. But, you know, he said, yeah, they just were really, really busy. And it wasn't just birthdays, it was
Everything, I'm
Everything,
sure.
yeah,
The
yeah.
graduations, and
Yeah,
baptisms,
yeah,
and
retirements,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
anniversaries, yeah.
yes, a lot of
That's
experiences.
And the idea was to do it like after dark, so
That's
they
what it
didn't
is.
know.
Right, it's supposed to be a
you know,
surprise.
So they wake up in
Right.
the
They'd get
morning
up in
and
the
Kind of,
morning.
kind of like the flamingos when we had
Yeah.
the flamingos, right? They just flock to your house.
Somehow they just,
They just show up. I know. It's like, okay. So, any other strangers or friends or family or? We had a couple of unexpected Zoom calls that were kind of fun. My cousin put together one with all the cousins, and that was actually kind of good to see everyone.
sure.
To know everybody was okay. And,
You hear about like people going through a drive-through and they pay for the person behind them or something. I thought that was,
We
you know,
had that happen
yeah,
in
that's
Hampton
cool.
after Colonel passed away. We went to
Oh.
Willie's,
mm-hmm.
and Greg Constable.
He's a nice guy.
He was sitting at the table with someone else, and Darwin and I were sitting at another table, and then He had his family with him, there was the other people had family, and then, they left. And when they were ready to pay the bill, and whoever was waiting on us, it's already been paid,
Oh, that was nice.
so.
That was nice.
Oh. Like, the other day, we went to, Dorothy Alden's visitation, so.
I had heard, yes.
And Mary, I tell you, Mary Sukup she was there, she was getting her rain hat on.
Oh, I'm sure.
When we drove up, and so I just went over and said, "Hi, Mary, what you doing?" You know, the last time my hair blew all over the place. I said, "Oh yeah, you know, the wind was blowing," and we all parked on the east side of the blacktop, so we had to cross it.
Oh, dear.
And I said, "Okay," and I waited for her to get in the car. He says, "Well, Darwin and I are going to take you across." You know, she says, "You know, I was wondering how I was going to get
Oh,
across."
good. Yeah, she's a little. she can be a little unsteady
We
on
got her
the
to the,
feet.
and then we went and visited whoever people we hadn't seen for a while that were at the visitation. Merrill Wheatley's husband Steve came with his second wife, you know, so it was like, oh, Bernadette and Steve are here, so we saw them, and some other people. And so then Charles was at the rock thing last night. We went up to that, and he said to Dawn right away, just, Mom had to tell me these two angels came in. He says, we were in Omaha.
Oh, okay.
And I said,
okay.
oh, and I said, well, yeah, you know, I says, you know, I knew she would probably have trouble
Yeah.
moving. And I thought, if there's cars buzzing down the blacktop, there better be three of us out there to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little scary sometimes
Yeah.
to be able to always watch.
Oh, that would be, yeah.
If people used it.
So now,
Yeah.
which where was?
West Fork.
Oh, out of the West Fork Church.
Uh-huh.
That's why.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Irene Kramer was playing the piano. She's 88.
Oh, God bless her.
I knew she was older, and she says, no. I said, how you doing, Irene? Well, I'm getting a little slower. And I said, well, I'm 88. Anyway, and then I saw her sitting up at the piano, organ, or whatever. and I'm
God bless
thinking,
her.
oh my gosh. But it was funny how we recognize people.
Yeah.
Jim Arns' sister. She said to Dad, I know you. I know you. And I looked at her and I says, you're an Arns. Yeah. You know, but I recognized her. She was taking pictures. She says, you guys can stand here because I want to send this to Jim and Tess.
Okay, so the next question says, just encourages us to do subtle acts of hospitality. So, what kind of subtle acts of hospitality? I mean, you don't have to do a lot. You know, sometimes just saying hi to people or recognizing someone. You know, I mean, they often tell.
Open the door, or
Yeah.
you know, or
Yeah.
To speak to somebody.
Or
Say
pick up
thank
somebody's
you,
or pick up somebody's bags or you
Say
know.
something to the kids, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah, you'd
at
be
the church
You'd
or.
be surprised how important that is. Sometimes you don't realize it. All right, you ready, Marcia? The next one is Isaiah. Okay, we're back to the
One whole
Old
verse.
Testament. Yeah, one whole verse. I don't know, it's kind of like confirmation, right?
Six.
Oh, I like this one.
This is a good one.
Wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. Read on.
Yeah, sure.
Will you come to my tea party, Grandma?
Of course you will.
I'd be delighted, I said, knowing that any time spent with my 3-year-old grandson would be a true pleasure. Gabriel took my hand and led me to a blanket he'd spread on the floor. It was already set up with a bright red plastic teapot, cups, and saucers. My job was to fill the pot with water for our tea. Gabriel filled a plate with animal crackers he had grabbed from the snack jar. Come sit, Grandma, he said. Our party is ready. I eased onto the floor, secretly praying I'd be able to get back up.
Yeah.
Gabriel poured some tea into our cups and placed 2 animal crackers on each plate. As I reached for pretend cream and sugar, my arm accidentally knocked over the half-filled teapot, spilling water all over our blanket table. Noting my distress and fear that I had ruined our tea party, Gabriel took his own cup and dumped his water onto the blanket. See, Grandma, it's all right, he said. Even I spill sometimes. We both started laughing. I realized I had never shared tea with a more gracious host. Gabriel taught me that true hospitality is about meeting and welcoming a person wherever they are, even if it's on a wet blanket.
So can you identify a time in your life when, I think that's supposed to be.
When you-
I don't know what that is. When you experience, that's a really bad typo. This is what it is. When you experienced unexpected hospitality, like in response to a mistake or an unfortunate situation.
Spilling a drink on somebody else's carpet.
Oh, yeah, that's was it wine?
No.
Because I've done that before. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just the other night, and it wasn't red, so.
However, I've been known to do that at other people's houses. So one year for Christmas, I got one of those glasses that had the chain around your neck.
You mean you're giving that
I
as
was
a gift?
given that as a gift for my birthday one year, yeah.
Okay, well.
And a lot of times it wasn't my fault that whatever was spilled, but it was always seemed to be my beverage that.
But we have had that happen at somebody else's house, and it was red wine on somebody's carpet, it wasn't, that time we're going like, oh, darn,
Oh,
what are we gonna do
dear.
this time?
Oh, dear.
And then then it was where they would bring the, what was it? What was the stuff that somebody bought? Was it in a can, or was it? There was something they said, they stuck it in because they thought maybe somebody had spilled the next one. So somebody had packed it, whoever had it packed.
Okay, that's
I don't know what it
funny.
was. But we could have, I think they did, they packed something, but we never had to use it.
Resolve does work wonders.
Yes, it does, thank the Lord. All kinds of things.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you respond when you see others in distressing situations? Other ways you might be more present with.
I was at Nyack one night for a concert or play or something.
Mhm.
And I was sitting about in the middle with a friend, out in the middle, and over here on the other aisle, a person fell down and hit their head on the chair and were laying on the floor.
And nobody
was doing anything.
Oh my God.
I got up and I trotted all the way around there and I said, "Is there a doctor here?" And then somebody said, "Well, I'm a nurse and somebody's gone for help." So,
But
but
you
there was
said
nobody
nobody
there,
there.
right there with that person. I said, "I'm halfway across the auditorium.
We
Did
had,
I miss something
we
here?"
had
Or
that happen at school once. One of the kids went down after rehearsal. And that was what Justice said. And he just stood there. Do something. Just stand there. So I don't know what to go get the nurse. I went and I checked her. She had passed out. She was breathing though. And I just kind of roused her a little bit, got her, well, by the time he went and got something, and he got all the kids out of there. And we sent them back to their study house. And I got her kind of rolled over. She wasn't making any sense at all. I mean, she was not making any sense. She was not there. It was very clear that she was not there. When we finally got her, I got her somewhat awake, and the nurse came in. "Oh, you've done an excellent job." I said, "Okay." And they called paramedics, and they got there, and we got her all situated and everything. But that was, it was okay. We're part of not helping somebody that do not understand. This, like, I don't care, and I suppose maybe it was the guy thing, because he was a male teacher and she was a female student. Maybe there was that boundary. I was like, come on. I was like, come on. But, yeah, I mean, I guess that's my instinct is to just, maybe you shouldn't sometimes, but I suppose. Anyway, so could your group host, we did host a tea party. We did that! Yay! I did. Those little girls have fun. Oh my goodness.
So what
Oh,
did Gemma say to me on the way, when she's got the new calf?
yes, she's so excited
I
about
don't
her
know,
new
she
cat.
gave me a hug yesterday when she left, and she says, "Are you coming out to see my calf pretty soon?" And I go, "Oh, Gemma," I says, "we'll come out and see it sometime,
some
but it'll
point,
probably be
okay.
summertime
Yeah.
before we come out to see your calf."
You'll have to take more pictures and send us pictures. Oh, they were so excited. Oh my goodness, they had such a good time.
Julie sent me a picture of Mia. She said they hadn't gotten to Chapin, and she was
They had
Yes.
such a good time. I was so surprised. And I was really surprised at how much tea got drunk. I was like, holy cow, we didn't have that many pitchers that had water in them left. I was like, I was so surprised. It's like, holy cow. But then who was it? I think it was you that said to me, it was a tea party.
Yes.
It was fun though. I thought
It was.
yeah.
It
It
was
was-
fun.
And the May Day baskets, I think that might have been the biggest hit of the day, except for the dress up clothes. I told Kim when we got home last night, I said, I'm not sure if the kids were having more fun dressing up or the grown ups were having more fun watching them.
Well, considering two of those three girls weren't gonna come,
Yes, I know.
Yes.
I know.
so
I know.
I'm
So
glad they
it's,
came.
I am too. I'm glad. All right, so we're ready to go on. Let's see, we're still in Isaiah, right? So the end of Isaiah this time. Oh, this is a longer one. I figured Carla would get the longer one. This is my favorite. These are the words to my favorite song, however. I'm going to tell you that.
Okay. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, who proclaim peace, who bring good tidings, who proclaim salvation, who say to Zion, your God reigns. Listen, your watchmen lift up their voices. Together they shout for joy. When the Lord returns to Zion, they will see it with their own eyes. Burst into songs of joy together, you ruins of Jerusalem. For the Lord has comforted his people. He has redeemed Jerusalem. The Lord will bear his holy arm in the sight of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth will see the salvation of our God. Depart, go out from there. Touch no unclean thing. Come out from it and be pure, you who carry the vessels of the Lord. But you will not leave in haste or go in flight. For the Lord will go before you. The God of Israel be your rear guard. See, my servant will act wisely. He will be raised and lifted up and highly exalted. Just as there are many who were appalled at him, his appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any man, and his form marred beyond human likeness. So will he sprinkle many nations, and kings will shut their mouths because of him. For what they were not told, they will see, and what they have not heard, they will understand.
All right, you want to keep reading or?
Okay.
Okay.
On Reformation Day 1991, I called up my father, a Lutheran pastor and theologian, and told him that I could no longer be a Lutheran. In my partial defense, at that time I didn't realize it was Reformation Sunday. For all intents and purposes, thanks to the refusal of the American Lutheran Church to fully embrace gay and lesbian people, whether ordained or not, I had already left. My cousin, who is dear to me, a lifetime Lutheran and a lesbian, has been told that the church could love her, the sinner, but not her sin. She could be celibate, but not herself. And with that, I thought to myself, fine, I can be religious, but not Lutheran. In 1991, my cousin flew me to Washington State for a blissful week. After that week, I had to fly home, and did so on a Sunday. Before bringing me to the airport, she and her partner took me to their church, a Methodist church, one that had declared that all are welcome. I felt a bit liturgically out of place until the sharing of the peace. In that moment, which I still recall as if it were last Sunday, everyone shared the peace. I mean everyone. People kissed, my cousin and her partner, gay partners, white and black partners, straight partners, everyone, greeted or hugged or in some way shared the shalom of God. I saw not just people sharing the peace, I saw God. When I returned to Minnesota that day, I called my parents to let them know I couldn't be a Lutheran anymore, which did not go well. Not long after that, though, I began hearing about Lutheran extraordinary ordinations of LGBT people. Their stories were evidence of Lutheran hospitality and chutzpah. I found hope and reason to remain not just Christian, but Lutheran.
Okay, and these questions are typical of the ones we've already answered, so are you okay if we skip that and go on? Or? Alright, so James 2, verse 18, so we're back to the New Testament, hopping back and forth here. Curious how she picked these verses. But okay. This is a really short one. Are you ready for this one? But someone will say, "You have faith, I have deeds. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by what I do." That's kind of the mantra of James. He's doing
Boy, that's really different.
You want me to read it again?
No,
Is it okay
you
if I
have
read
faith,
it
I
again?
have works.
There you go. Okay, good. So, Unexpected Kindness. This is by Helen Hollingsworth. Perfect location, I thought, as I drove to the church parking lot. Directly across the street from a KFC. I determined that I would not need to cook this Sunday. I had more than Jesus on my mind. Outside the sanctuary was a friendly looking coffee shop. While the service wasn't particularly my style of worship, it seemed authentic. The preacher was full of fire. It might be a place to visit again, I mused. Then I learned that all first-time visitors were invited to meet the pastor after worship in the coffee shop. So I waited there, but he never came. Disappointed, I made my way outside to my car, only to discover that I had a flat tire. It wasn't the only thing that had deflated. So was my spirit. I sat in my car in that new community, realizing I didn't know what to do. I looked out my window. A tall, gray-haired gentleman was smiling at me. He'd seen my dilemma. The man then promptly changed my tire. Later, I learned that he was the congregation's assistant pastor. His kindness that day made me feel like I mattered. It's as Martin Luther once said, faith brings a person to God. Love brings person to people. Love is putting our faith into action to help get the wheels moving. I will show you my faith by my works, reads James 2:18. When we welcome others, that's where the rubber meets the road. So again, and similar questions, what steps do we take to make sure people are feel welcome? Try to do what we can, I think more, outreach with the live stream ministry and things like that. I have to tell you, I don't know if you guys know, you can check like the number of views that a live stream or a recording has had. Our little recording that we do gets like 7, sometimes 8, 9, 10 views. And that's, I know one of them was the
You mean
person.
beside,
Yeah, besides the ones that they have.
as one.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't realize that. So hi, whoever else is watching. So anyway, shall we go on?
Okay.
Okay, so.
All right, The Heart of My Inner 9-Year-Old by
Oh, there
Bruce
we go.
Rector. Matthew 19, 13 to 15.
We have a hint here.
Yeah. Jesus and the little
Oh,
children.
the little children. Okay, good.
Then the people brought their little children to Jesus so he could put his hands on them and pray for them. His followers told him to stop. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me. Don't stop them, because the kingdom of heaven belongs to people who are like these children." After Jesus put his hands on the children, he left there.
The Patha Lutheran Church in Milwaukee welcomed me as a future church leader, but also as family. My very first visit was in 2016. That day, the sanctuary was warm with singing and praise from This Far by Faith, the ELCA African Descent Worship Book. People I had never met before shook my hand with joy, introducing me proudly to their friends and their children, and asked what part of town I'd moved to and how I liked the city. I especially remembered the children, for whom that Sunday was a special day. Many had brought their report cards and attendance certificates so the church community could celebrate with them.
I thought back to my experience of church at that age. Stiff, scratchy dresses, loud shoes, some boring adult stuff, lots of music. Seeing these exuberant children lauded, watching the community of Hepatha love on them made a wonderful impression on me. Excuse me. Touching the heart of my inner 9-year-old. The huge, inviting sheet cake also may have The huge inviting sheet cake may have also made an impression on that inner 9-year-old. Pastor Mary Martha Canas and her congregation became a second home for me while I was living in Milwaukee. I saw Hepatha's love for children in its well baby initiatives and after-school programming. The congregation's warm welcome and focus on gospel-centered service have never left me.
What was your experience of church as a child? Did you feel at home?
All the time.
The back of the church. Yeah. I remember that when I was baptized at First Lutheran in Largo. And that's when my parents
Okay.
always went to church. And then when we moved to Indianola, we started going to Redeemer, which was the only Lutheran church in town. And it was a tiny little church. And I don't think it was more than 10 years old when we started. And I can remember walking in the door, and the only place to sit was in the front of the church. And my dad was just, and we never ever sat anywhere but in front of the church after that. We always sat in front of the church. It was always in front of the church. And I just remember feeling really welcome when we walked in the door. It was just like, it was such a different experience from church at First Lutheran. Not that that was it was just different. Of course, we were a little bit older too, but still,
Everybody was related in our local church.
Yeah.
At that time.
Cousins.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just like
Uncles,
aunts,
50 years ago.
Yeah.
When we first
Oh,
got
yeah.
married, everybody
You
was
know.
pretty much related here.
Oh, yeah.
And there was very
You know.
few that.
Everybody was,
Mhm.
somehow, they were, so there was a stranger, you knew it because you knew everybody else.
Stranger in the room.
Yeah.
So did you feel at home then?
Huh?
Or did
Well,
you
yeah.
feel like you couldn't get away with
Well, yeah.
anything because
Well,
everybody was watching, right?
no, because my dad, mom.
Yes, I understand. Or you could be like my
Just
kids,
knew.
the pastor's kids.
Days.
They were not happy about that. Valued, loved. What was expected of you on Sunday morning? You're expected to behave yourself. That was for sure. And in my family, if you got taken out of church, that always meant you were pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That front door right at the end of this, well,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not here, over there. There were
You-
the steps
yeah.
out.
Yeah,
You
and
went
if
outside the
and
door.
If you went outside
Yep.
the door, you knew
Yep.
something bad was coming.
You were
Yeah.
outside.
I remember taking Brian out because he was crying. I don't know what it was. And then Dorothy Fell come up one day and she says, you know what? Just think every Sunday he's another week older.
That's it. That's right.
That's what she said. He's another week older.
Well, and then I had, and I can remember in Muscatine, Christopher was first baby born there in many a year. And so he was a novelty anyway. And so he would start fussing during church, and one Sunday I got up to kind of go out, and she says, "Okay, you just sit right back down." She said, "It'll be okay. The music's gonna start pretty soon. It'll be fine." And she was right, because every time the music would start, he'd go back to sleep. So I was like, and then I can remember one of them. No, it wasn't Muscatine. It must have been once we got down. Oh, it was when we got down to. When we got down to St. Louis, they didn't have a cry room. They didn't have a nursery. They didn't believe in taking. It's written right in the bulletin. We don't care if the kids scream. We don't care if they cry. We don't care if they throw a temper tantrum. We want them in church. And so if you have issues, if you feel like you need to go out for a few minutes, but we invite you to come back in. Please don't feel like you have to, because we want you to be here too. And then, I remember the pastor saying something once about if you don't, it's actually easier for the kids if they're closer to the front of the church, because then they can see what's going on. And they'll be more engaged in what's going on. And they're right. The tendency is to always want to sit towards the back of the kids, because then you can get them out in a hurry if you need to. But they actually are more engaged. And I see that when I have the kids singing. They're way more engaged when they're up there in front, when they can see what's going on. With the lights and the
Somebody's back there making faces out of herself.
that too. That doesn't help. But I mean, it does help when they're more engaged in what's going on. It makes time pass a little faster. So yeah. Anyway, so I think there. I think this church does a really good job of making the kids feel welcome. I know when they sing on Sundays, I hear lots of people tell them afterwards, they did a really good job. They're always really positive. Anyway, should we go on? We're getting there. So we got one more story, it looks like.
Okay.
Right? Are we on the last?
One more story
Yeah,
here?
one more
Is the last
story.
one? Okay.
But no Bible verses this time.
Did a particular person, place, or moment help you to become the person you are today? My friend Nancy played a big role in who I became as a young adult. But in sharing her story, it now occurs to me that I get to multiply that effect. Nancy passed away in 2018. To make sure I had the details of her story right, I reached out to her daughter, Emily. After a few rounds of phone tag, Emily returned my call from her car with her daughter at her side. Via speakerphone, they both shared the story as they remembered it. The three of us laughed together as we remembered the details. The love Nancy had for ketchup and the way Nancy had shared her life with so many others, family and strangers alike. As the memories veered off topic, Emily laughed and said, "Well, I am my mother's daughter." Suddenly I realized the power Nancy's story still had. Because of her example, her children, her grandchildren, and the many others who loved Nancy were still connecting, still laughing, and still remembering. This is the impact we can have on lives across the generations. One act of welcome can beget another, making us all more connected in the end.
So, what stories have you heard in your lifetime that changed your thinking? About life, faith, or journey? I was thinking about hearing. Now, my mom was in an unusually funny mood yesterday.
She was kind of,
But I mean, when we got home last night, she was just telling story after story after story after story.
Did you write them down?
No, I should have got my phone out and just recorded them. But I was just fascinated to just listen. I mean, because there's stories that I had not heard before, and she rarely talks about her life, about growing up. Yeah, she rarely talks about it. She has a lot of negative memories from when she was young, and so she doesn't talk about it very much. And so, but last night she was just so engaged. She was just going on and on, this story and this story, and then we did this, and then we did this, and this happened. And it's like, it's just like I didn't know that, and it kind of explained a lot that I didn't, that I didn't realize had happened or didn't understand what had happened. So it was kind of interesting. But yeah, I was fascinated by this. She just kept, and I wondered maybe if it was just because of what had happened during the day, or maybe she was just, I don't know. It was just,
it was having a little fun downstairs and it just kind of
I guess maybe, I don't know, but it was just, we had so much, and then she's like, hey, and then I think about that, we weren't hungry at all. I don't know about you guys, but we weren't hungry at all. We got home and I just like, and Kim's like, well, are we going to do supper? And I'm like, no. Because, well, I'm going to do supper. Go ahead.
Get it yourself.
We're good.
Yeah.
And then about 9 o'clock, she'd been telling these stories that she said, I'm kind of hungry. Okay, well, we decided we were going to have ice cream. So we just had the general pig out, eat sugar day. But it was kind of fun. I just was like, wow, that was kind of a nice. I thought it was a fun memory we had made yesterday. So I was just like, yeah, that was kind of cool. So, but I, as she was telling some of those stories, I thought to myself, yeah, that kind of explains why you are the way you are. I mean, good and bad.
Sure.
You know, my mom, we all have our flaws and reasons why we are the way we are. So.
So you never know, you know, when you're gonna have
Right.
a family get together, what, you know,
What's
you're
gonna
gonna
be,
open up or, you
Yeah.
know.
Yes.
We could be sitting in a restaurant and the kids start talking and it's just fun to.
Sometimes it's fun the things they
Learn the things we didn't know back then.
yeah, the things that come,
That come out now, that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a few of those stories that come out. Yes. Yeah.
That they aren't afraid to tell us now.
But, you know, like when we come together and we do Bible study and stuff. Sometimes the stories, you know, like sometimes we laugh and sometimes we cry and it's like, you know, it's just.
I mean, when we were growing up, we didn't have a lot of money in our house. My folks always used us for a ride on Sunday afternoon. We always tried to get to Bertz's house.
To Birdsville. That's a good
We
place
say-
to go.
Yeah, we gotta go this way.
We gotta go down this gravel road. Who lives down this road? But we knew where everybody lived. And you know, you would stop sometimes. If
Visit.
somebody was out,
Yeah.
we would just stop for 15 minutes and visit with them, and then we'd be on our way again. And
Oh,
that's what
fun.
we do in the afternoon.
Oh, what a fun.
Well, we did, we
memory.
went to, you know, we went to see people,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
you know.
We go down the creek and swim in the Winnebago.
Oh, my
A lot
goodness.
of times, you know, my folks, there wasn't any kids involved, but, you know, it was, you know, but, well, that's
We
what
still,
we did,
they
you
were
know.
like my great aunts and uncles. My mom and dad would go see. It was their aunts and uncles.
Yeah, you
Mhm.
know,
And we always had lunch. So I mean, you know, we had some kind of good cookies and things
Oh,
that
yeah.
they always have.
And if you went to Grandma's house, you always
Oh,
had
yeah.
cookies.
Mhm.
Cookies and all kinds of stuff. You might
Different
get
things.
money and all kinds of things.
one lady we used to go see, and let's have cinnamon toast. And I was
Oh,
like,
yum.
"Oh,
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's a good.
you know, she always had bread.
yeah.
Just, yeah.
My
Oh,
grandma,
cinnamon
they
toast.
got together for every one of her brothers and sisters' birthdays.
Mhm.
And they would take me with them, and then hopefully one of the others would bring their grandkids. That's the only way we ever got to see those cousins, you know. So that was always fun. They always had lunch, but it was sandwiches and cake. You know,
Oh, my.
somebody's birthday, so guys had cake and sandwiches and everything.
My mom, you know, they all lived like on a section.
Mhm.
So it was just kind of, you know, you rotated
Yep.
which relative you went to see on a Sunday afternoon. That was their social
My folks think
week, you know.
500, and one
Oh,
guy
gosh,
had
yes.
just, he had one arm. So he had this thing with his cards,
Mhm.
you know, his cards. The folks would play cards, and let's see, the one family had 8 kids, one family had 6, there were 4 in ours. So we'd go out and play Annie over in the dark, and we'd do all this stuff, and if we got tired, I
Red
guess
Rover, that was
we
another
do
one.
that.
Or
We
we
always
chase
had
lightning bugs.
Jello
Or
and
we go collect
Kool-Aid.
salamanders
Yeah.
out of the window wells. We had the best
Jello
time.
and Kool-Aid and sandwiches. I think that's what we had
And
for
we
lunch.
get called in after dark sometimes
Yes.
when they were ready to go home. Yes.
But we'd come in and watch them for a minute, and then we'd be off and gone again. But I don't ever remember.
or we'd all come inside. Hey, we're hungry. Oh, there's food out in the kitchen.
But I don't remember us fighting, you know, like getting really mad at each other. But we all were about the same age.
Oh yeah, we were too. We had the best time playing together. We get the balls and bats out, and,
Oh, yeah.
Have a
and
team.
sometimes the
Like
dads
hide and
would come out and play with us. That was the best time when the dads would come out and play with us. That was always great fun. Well, okay, so should we do our prayer? Dear Lord,
Thank you for the gift of stories. Thank you for the power they have to shape, challenge, and transform us. Thank you for the gift of our siblings in Christ, with whom we get to live, create, and share these stories. May we remember the power we all have to shape one another's lives through acts of kindness, love, and generosity. Help us continue to create stories that are testaments to your work in our lives. Amen.
Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
We miss you.